Silver Sands Motel asks, Larry Zbyszko has said that the WWF was nearly bankrupt with Backlund as champion. Is this true? Brackets great podcast. And I think I may have asked you the same thing at some point.
I don't know. Too many big markets, and the card alone, the formula was in those days that they'd bring a guy in, you'd have your big, and that was they did the day of the big heels, the Ox Bakers, the 6'6", 300-pound plus heels, and they'd come in, and they started with Bruno to Pedro to Bob and stuff, and the champion was always wrestling oversized heels and stuff. It wasn't until my friend Valentine came in that he started working that low down dirty rat. Until Valentine came in, they started working programs and stuff with not working programs, but working. We went to putting time in with the champ and stuff. So where were we going with this?
Larry Zbyszko claiming that Backlund as champion.
Yeah, as far they're going broke. That's why we contrasted the Dory Funk Juniors and the Eddie Grahams from the Vern Gagnes and the Vince McMahon Seniors. Their territories, they're operating on population. They're operating on it was there. You're going to go to a small high school town and draw $10,000, out of a high school. So, but all their massive marketing and their massive productions. But like going back to the formula, you'd have a guy come in 6 to 8 weeks of tapes. You just saturate his tapes onto the wrestling. And you would, before myself and other guys, you would go right to your first match would be Madison Square Garden against one of the big venues, but it would be, your premiere would be Madison Square Garden with the champ, and you'd break off into 1 or 2 or 3 matches, however many matches you're going to run off of there. But on the card as well, you had, Wild Samoans or, Dominic DiNucci or, all these other guys, the Valiants and all these, just in a tremendous array of talent. And you have your Patterson and Slaughter angle, or your other angles going on, your Intercontinental champions, or so you had, it wasn't solely Bob Backlund that was carrying the territory. In fact, the territories were being carried by the heel that was being brought into them for the most part, and then they had their their strata of like later on I went to myself and Orndorff, and Valentine and Orton, their tier of lower or fundamental heels or foundational heels that would work, work your programs and stuff, and they always had talented guys. So as far as the territory run going broke, and when Vince ran low on money and when Vince was overinvested and everything else is when he was going for WrestleMania 1. And then they were putting together and all the TVs, all the networks and national, that's when he was close to, or rumored, close to bankruptcy and all that aspect of it. But aside from that, I don't think, everything was a well-oiled machine, really.
I've heard this criticism a couple of times as well about Backlund, is that, and as you mentioned before, the WWF or WWF champion was only a small part of the whole card. But I've heard this criticism about Backlund, is that they extra loaded the cards to compensate for Backlund. That's for detractors of Bob would say that, like more than they would Pedro or Bruno.
I don't know. It probably was just where the business was heading at the time, where they were breaking off into, they weren't running the single towns, they were starting into the 2 or 3 town, 2 or 3 big cities a night at times, your Midwest, your West Coast, your East Coast, your South, all areas like that. They're running 2 or 3 shows. So, and then when big championship shows, like that they want, they throw a bunch of angles together on the card. But as far as that to carry the card, I don't think, I don't know. I'm sure it didn't hurt. And then they like, they all, all the promoters and all the, owners and stuff like to, they like to highlight their cards. They like to put the spotlight on their programs and their shows. So if they have Madison Square Garden cards or Philly Spectrum or, Washington Cap Center, these 21,000 capacity arenas, they like to highlight the fact that the place is sold out, or the fact that the place is packed. So, sure, it would be only natural to load the cards.
Well, I think it bears mentioning here that if Bob Backlund was such a subtraction to the total gate, they would not have kept the belt on him for 5 years. So I think that's probably fair to say.